So somebody sent me a PM indicating that they thought that the funtastic YouTuber I've responded to, Seedling, might only be 15 years old. Now, if that's true, then I feel that perhaps I was a bit harsh. Wait, first, do I regret how harsh I was? Of course I don't. I don't believe in regret. Regret is a myth perpetrated by the patriarchy to oppress women, and I won't support that. But if she is only 15 years old, then her, profound ignorance, insanely naive view of the world, endless self-absorption, they're all actually quite a bit more reasonable for that age bracket. But I don't think she is 15 because she says things about college classes. But then again, maybe college means something entirely different in Canada. After all, in Canada they call their disgusting, rancid ham bacon, right? So, by the way, if you're ever in Canada and somebody's like, would you like some bacon, eh? Just say, oh, well, that's so very kind of you to offer, but please fuck off with your putrid bullshit. I'm not a vulture. I'm not just going to eat whatever pieces of carcass you throw in front of me, FYI. Anyway, because of time constraints, I haven't actually watched any of her video. I'm just going to start going through it, assuming there'll be some silly stuff to respond to. Let's just see how that works out. If there isn't, you'll never see this, and I'm just talking to myself like a crazy motherfucker.
Hey, so I'm gonna read something that I wrote. I wrote it for a magazine that I contribute to sometimes, and I mostly wanted to write this because I think modern sexism is something that needs to be talked about more. I actually got the idea when I was presenting in a class.
Yes, that's all terribly interesting, but back to me. Hey, Piro, hey, Hyflo Day, remember how you were saying I'm such a big, mean bully? I don't know if you noticed, but Seedling here looks 20 to 26% less ridiculous than all of her other videos to date. It's almost like my vicious mocking actually had the effect of making her less ridiculous. And if you'll look, her face is less round and bloated. You can even see the beginnings of cheekbones, almost like she has started to eat vegetables and or exercise. Mocking works, bitches. Not you, Seedling. You're a wonderful person. I'm talking to my two bitches, Piro and Hyflo Day, who felt that I was too harsh, even though I clearly have positively impacted your life. Alright, let's go on.
I'm taking a class called The Philosophical Issues of Cognitive Science.
Go on.
Modern sexism is subtle. It exists in the passing comments and rolling eyes of those who believe we've already achieved equality. It manifests itself in the belief that the battle is won, that modern feminists are just whining now, or, more cynically, the belief that feminism is now attempting to gain an unfair advantage or prove women's superiority over men.
Because I'm going to be refraining from vicious mocking, I'm just going to put this as delicately as I can. All of the forms of sexism which you have mentioned so far would 100% evaporate and disappear were there not feminists going around claiming that there was a great deal of sexism. The rolling of the eyes, the claiming that equality has... all that. Let me just give you a nice little analogy. Suppose I were to go around saying something like this. Aliens are taking human form and living among us. You can see the evidence for this quite clearly, although it is subtle. Whenever you mention the aliens living among us in disguise, you can see how people roll their eyes. They claim that indeed there are not aliens living among us. They even say that we people who know this are just crazy to say that there are aliens living among us in disguise. Do you see how none of that actually proves that there are aliens living among us in disguise? It's actually,
This form of denial, which occurs throughout the gender spectrum, ignores the evil genius of racism, sexism, and all other oppressive isms.
Feminism!
That is, participation is not necessary to reap the benefits of privilege. The status quo has not shifted. Women may have gained the right to vote, but power inequities remain firmly institutionalized through class, economics, social roles, media, and so on. One way to understand this is to examine a human right which is taken to be obvious. In North America, we are all afforded freedom of speech. It is written into the fundamental moral codes of our countries. There are even explicit efforts to protect the rights of those who have been historically oppressed. But this oppression is not merely historical. It exists in the present. The problem is that it exists in the systems which inform us. And in order to function in our society, we are required to accept what it teaches, to place value on the beliefs of some while dismissing others, to see only one kind of beauty, wisdom, and success. Upon reflection, it becomes clear that all speech is not free. Consider the fact that women make up less than 20% of the world's parliamentary seats.
Wow, Seedling, I absolutely did not know that that was the case. Of course, that's probably because I didn't do, like, a genital count of the seats of Parliament. Oh my God, you just totally blew my mind, Seedling, and I will fully admit that I was wrong. There is still sexism in this modern era.
It requires a great deal of hard work and privilege to reach that position, and even their voices are not always heard. I may be able to publish my thoughts on the internet, or for the internet to read, but this opportunity too comes as a result of my own privilege. Without understanding your place or my place in the power structure which is our society, there is no way to recognize the persons who are afforded even less space to speak or exist in safety.
You mean like one-eyed Russian expatriates? Oh wait, no, I'm white and male. I got all that privilege. Keep going.
Modern sexism and other isms may not always be explicit, although they often still are. But to claim equality now is to forget the forgotten.
Forgetting the forgotten is both impossible and redundant.
Modern sexism is different from traditional sexism in that it can only come into appearance when we reflect on ourselves and what has been presented to us as the norm.
Okay, here's where I'm again going to give loving advice here. You really shouldn't concern yourself with what is presented to you as the norm, because that's some stupid horse shit 100% of the time in 100% of societies. You know, sometimes I watch shows made for teenagers like The Vampire Diaries, and and there's this one like Roswell that was on a while back, and there's all these teenagers that are always like striving to be normal, and I'm like, what a tedious fucking ambition that is. The norm? Fuck the norm, man. Now maybe that's just sour grapes because the norm has never really entirely been an option for me. I can act normal for extended periods of time, but I just find it very, very fucking boring in every way. I mean, people really just say the same few things over and over throughout the day. Is just so goddamn boring. But I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent here. My thesis really is the norm is just for people who can't think. There's really no point in even considering it. I mean, reflecting on it, you're going to end up like the feminist frequency, trying to read too deep into something that has no depth. It's just a template.
The justified, the progress, the now. It can only be seen and therefore changed when we reflect on the authority of the voices that inform the status quo, when we reflect on who hears us when we speak, and who we ought to start listening to.
No one really listens when you speak, and I'm not being mean. I'm saying that when people speak, people generally don't listen. They just sort of grab random words and reassemble it into a sentence that they want to hear, either to agree or argue. People very rarely listen. And also, might I suggest, don't listen to people. There's no point. Let me be clear. You should try to get information from people. You should listen for information, but don't actually listen to what they're trying to tell you, because that's crap. It's always crap. Just try to get the facts and make your own thoughts out of them. FYI, this is why I think philosophy is a big pile of horse shit. But that's a whole other series of videos.
Okay, so that's it. When I was reading it, I just sort of was thinking about more experiences that I've had recently, specifically the part about the voices that have been silenced historically and also presently. And I think I just wanted to point out that this is really true to my life. I mean, I'm in philosophy, which actually in one of my philosophy classes, my prof brought up the fact that philosophy is still one of the most male-centered fields, so like way more than like sociology, psychology, and all these things. And she was asking us, like, why do you think that is?
Yes, terribly interesting. You know, whenever I hear one of these women say, women are smarter than men, that's just a fact, they should provide that as supporting evidence, a little like this. Women are smarter than men. Oh yeah, says who, bitch? Turned out that most of the people in philosophy classes is men. Aw, snap, you just got torched. You just got torched. I'm sorry, go on.
And I think one of the main reasons, and this is just my opinion, is that philosophy is very much about distancing yourself from what you're talking about. It's very much about being a rational, you know, Descartes, his cogito is I think, therefore I am. And he got there to be, he thinks that being is really just thinking. That's all that we are. That's all that is our existence. And that, you know, sparked a lot of a big philosophical movement in the 17th century.
Well, I know absolutely nothing about this. Despite this, I'm going to take a stab at this and say that you're wrong. What I think Descartes was trying to do was probably like philosophers usually like, I need to find what objective reality is. So first I have to determine what I can be absolutely certain of. Well, I mean, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, the things I taste, touch, I mean, I don't really know for a fact that these things actually exist. For all I really know, they could be the artifact of some evil genius outside of my consciousness, fooling me into believing these exist. But the one thing that an evil genius feeding me stimuli could not produce is my mind itself. My mind is my existence. It cannot be faked to me because it is me. I think, therefore I am. That's my guess. I don't know. But I think you're wrong. Also, did you just say that women are less objective? That is blatantly sexist.
And it's all based on the fact that, you know, we are just our thinking existence. We are not our embodied existence, essentially. And I think that this idea of distancing yourself from your lived experiences is really common in philosophy, and that's, you know, troublesome because lived experiences also inform who we are and what we're capable of, in that, you know, different limitations are put on different people based on their physical existence. And I'm taking a class right now, and it's in the same period of time, philosophically, as Descartes, but it's women in early modern philosophy. And it's amazing that I took an early modern philosophy class, as everyone in philosophy is required to do, and we didn't learn a single woman. There was a mention of Princess Elizabeth speaking to Descartes in letters, but we didn't really look into it. And now, all of a sudden, there's several women who are writing deep philosophical texts that not only addressed the ideas of educating women and the morality behind that, but also just...
So, women, philosophers, they get into philosophy and they immediately start discussing women. Do you see why maybe only 20% of your parliament cigarettes are women? It's because people, you know, they vote for a woman. She's going to do nothing but talk about women, women's issues, and then the men are going to be like, well, why did I vote for this bigot here who only cares about women? I mean, just like your little female philosopher. I mean, of course, philosophy is useless, futile crap, and none of it is deep whatsoever. Not what the men write, not what the women write. Oh, yes, it is all crap. But the crap they write about, of course, it's about women. I mean, geez, could you try to develop another dimension or something? I'm just saying, you know, maybe I think Goodfellow did a really great video on why there aren't more women in politics, mainly because they just talk about women. You don't see male politicians be like, if you got a penis, then you understand my plight. And yeah, I had to work very hard. Oh yeah, blah 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 blah. Oh, and that's another thing. I was talking about, like, oh, I had to overcome all this hardship to be, you know, to get elected. It's like, quit bitching. Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools. No, that wasn't about you. I just heard the song earlier. It's stuck in my head. I think it was by Green Day. I'm sorry, what? It's getting late. I'm losing focus. This video's so long. Maybe I should end it here. I'll see if there's anything else. If not, TTFN.
Address natural philosophy and all these, very metaphysical things that the men were speaking of, and they were in correspondence with these big male philosophers, and yet no one has read these women, no one has heard of them. And the class that I'm in, it's still mostly guys, because philosophy really is mostly guys. And the guys in the class, they talk to me about it, and they're amazed at the fact that they had no idea these women were writing, and it's like it's opening up a whole new narrative that wasn't there. We learned this.
God damn it, I guess I gotta keep going. Narrative. Okay, listen. Narratives, that's another one of those things. It's crap, alright? I think Hyflo Day was talking about having like an internal narrative. And people love stories, they really do. And I think that's why we have shit like the Bible. It takes the universe and turns it into a nice story with a beginning, middle, and, it has some good conflict in there. It also has some good exposition, conflict, some nice denouement, resolution, right? Narratives, humans love stories, but as entertaining as they are total horseshit. So just keep that in mind. Narratives are not a good thing, at least in terms of understanding reality in any substantial way whatsoever.
One narrative of how philosophy developed through the 17th century and how it turned into contemporary philosophy, and we were never taught how these women had their own narrative and how they contributed to that narrative that we've learned. And I think that it's just being covered over, and that doesn't only exist in philosophy, that exists everywhere. I think it, is still happening a lot in philosophy, which is a problem, which is why we have to talk about it.
Listen, Seedling, I want you to focus on what's important here. Okay, you know what? I'll even tell you, hey, maybe women are underrepresented in philosophy. Maybe there has been a lot of work done to cover up the women philosophers. Okay. It's totally possible. Hell, I don't know. I sure haven't studied the matter. But the bigger issue is that philosophy is totally fucking worthless. So it doesn't really matter if women are underrepresented in something that is essentially mental masturbation. So, I mean, it's your basic good news, bad news. The bad news is the women are underrepresented in philosophy. The good news is that doesn't matter because philosophy is pure horse shit, but I guess that's also bad news if you like philosophy. I guess it's your good news, bad news sandwich. God, I'm getting tired. Go on.
In our classes, but we also have to talk about it in terms of our history classes that are still the same narrative. And we need to explore what other narratives tie into that and which ones are just completely, separate from those.
No more talk about useless fucking narratives. You have a nice night, and I hope that I was, nice and pleasant and less attacky. Is this better, Hyflo Day and Piero, me playing the patron? Have a nice night.